Warbles on a lot here with the conclusion of the round table discussion. And then a warble rant.
Around the parliament. These are people jostling in the background. That's the Conservatives, so Dutton and Morrison are jostling if there's going to be a change in the leadership, and Turnbull finding his inner mongrel to say, no, I can still do the job.
John, will that parliamentary attack really help Turnbull?
Well, the real question is it a one-off event, or does it represent a new strategy for tackling the leader of the opposition? And does Malcolm Turnbull in particular, but there will be others involved, do they have the talent to give it some momentum? Can they bring in the variety? Can they make the case constantly but in sufficiently diverse ways to keep electorate interest? I think it's jumping the gun to say that we have a new Malcolm Turnbull, and it must be recalled that Turnbull's speech during the week was a direct response to a previous speech in like manner from Bill Shorten. In other words, he was fired up by some tremendous provocation, and how he can do it when he doesn't have the direct provocation will be part of the interest in how the story develops.
Hayden, do those kind of attacks in Parliament help bridge the divide that is clearly evident on the Conservative side of politics?
Well, I have the view that great leaders, good leaders, are measured mongrels. They've got to be able to combine that attack dog element. And, you can think of the qualities of Keating, obviously, in that regard, and the way he dominated Parliament and was able then to shift the conversation out into the community. But you have to be measured, and that's the question today. That speech worked for Turnbull internally, obviously for the National and the Liberal Party, where there were drums beginning to beat. And people were writing, can he survive the year? That'll go away for a while, but he now has to convince the Australian people that he actually has a vision and a set of ideas to hold together, that church, that broad church. We all quote Howard so many times saying that, that is the Liberal Party.
Yes, well, a different view, of course, is Hugh Mackay. He was quoted by Michael Gordon in the Melbourne Age yesterday, I think, and he says that we'll be able to track the gradual disintegration of Turnbull from that attack. And he goes on to say, it was such a weak strategy and so appallingly personal and vile that I think a lot of people are going to lose a lot of respect for him over that. Paula, quickly.
Some people said that about Julia Gillard's misogyny speech, when in fact, it was a message to a certain group of supporters, and Turnbull's was exactly the same, a message to a certain group of supporters and not to the broader Australian community.
To be continued. Great to have you all on our Sunday Roundtable this week. Thanks to my guest, politics blogger Paula Matthewson, John Nethercote from the Australian Catholic University, and Hayden Manning, Associate Professor at Flinders University in South Australia. Well, we're almost out of time.
Yeah. We're almost out of pretty much left-wing views at the ABC on a Sunday morning too. There's been a few changes since this used to be the Outsiders program, and it had people who were outside of politics from various streams, so you wound up with a balanced view. Yeah, it seems like somebody at the ABC is trying to placate the Turnbull government. Personally, I'm delighted that Corey Bernardi has decided to split the right-wing neo-fascist vote, start out his own party. Divide and conquer is the way it appears to me. He doesn't want to be part of a monolithic right-wing, quote, conservative government. And it pisses me off that the right wing of politics, the corrupt crony capitalist, authoritarian, dictatorial, tyrannical, prescriptive, fascist style of politics, they call themselves conservative. They don't want to conserve anything. What they want to do is to exploit every environmental surplus they can notice. Look for a loophole, jump through the loophole, snatch a profit, come back, leave ruin and waste in your wake, and go and have a cafe or latte in the city somewhere. Don't think about the destruction. For example, in Malcolm Turnbull's case, don't think about the destruction that he personally wrought in order to build his massive fortune when he was director of a logging company that had the worst environmental record in the entire Southwest Pacific. He left desert islands where there used to be, lush tropical paradises. That's, it's a thing. It's a thing. Malcolm Turnbull is a ruthless bastard. He let loose on Bill Shorten, and yeah, it was pretty funny, as somebody said in a tweet which got picked up by Radio National and broadcast, therefore I know about it. Somebody said it's pretty rich seeing a banker call anybody else a parasite. Somebody who has met with success in their quest for lucre. They've got rich, they've got a pile of money, and they're laughing at somebody else on the grounds that somebody else is perceived to yearn for wealth, the trappings of wealth. He wants a harbourside mansion just like the one that I've got, says Malcolm Turning Bull. Meanwhile, they had a blackout in Adelaide because they had a coal-fired power station, and the people who were in charge of predicting electricity demand didn't think that quite as many air conditioners were going to be turned on as were turned on. So it wasn't that they didn't have the thermal generated power stations available, they just simply didn't switch them on, and therefore Malcolm Turnbull came out yet again and tried to blame the blackout on the windmills. Right now, strangely enough, the new right-wing roundtable discussion didn't see fit to mention it. We're in the grip of a little heatwave brought to us by the coal-fired, fossil-fuelled Liberal National Party, who are ecstatic that Tronald Dump doesn't believe in global warming. They think it's marvellous that he's forbid NASA from making any earth science observations of climate change. He's appointed a litigious crank who's been trying to sue the Environmental Protection Agency because he reckoned it was exceeding the bounds of its charter by actually attempting to protect clean air by bringing in regulations that forbid pollution. So he's been put in charge of the department that he wants to get rid of. There's a Betsy Voss who's never attended a public school in her life. She's donated millions of dollars to the Republican Party. She's donated millions of dollars to anti-abortion Christian fundamentalist publicists, and she's been made Secretary of Education. The excited states is going to hell in a handbasket faster than anybody could have predicted. Donald Trump is living up to every cretinous election promise that he ever made. About the only way I can think of to make sense of it is that for the past 70 years, like since the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, pretty much the best brains on the planet have devoted themselves to the task of not having another war, of keeping the peace. There's been little brush wars all over the place, granted, but they haven't had the big one. They haven't had the insensate nuclear spasm wherein two antagonists swap nuclear arsenals, only instead of having them safely underground or in a bunker, they put them all out and display them over the cities of each other. Counter-value targeting, they call it. You go after the other person's cities, which sort of went out of fashion, as delivery systems became more accurate during the 70s and 80s, and counter-force targeting became a feasible possibility. Once you got cruise missiles that could pick which window in the building you wanted to go into, suddenly you didn't need to have multi-megaton bombs because, mini nukes, kilotons would do. So, yeah, we didn't have the thermal exchange that I, for one, greatly feared was going to happen in 1984. So yeah, they've managed to keep it all together, and they've managed to grow the economy in the Western industrialised countries, and in a hell of a lot of the unindustrialised countries too. They've got a much bigger economy now than they did back then. Where there used to be rickshaws, there's now mopeds. And everybody's got a mobile phone everywhere. If they'd had their global insensate nuclear spasm in 1984, if Reagan and Gorbachev had nuked each other instead of negotiating away several missile systems on either side, chopped up all those B-52s so that they could be verified as having been destroyed for the satellite. If they had just had the war, then the amount of anthropogenic carbon dioxide which humanity has caused to be in the air for the last 200 years, half of it would still be in the ground. So it feels to me as if the biosphere has decided that it's time to let the humans pursue their ridiculous goals of endless growth to its logical, absurd conclusion. So, organically the planet has thrown up Trumps and Trump impersonators all over the place. The people in England want to go back to the British Empire, so they want to pull out of the European Empire that they were a pretty big part of. Donald Trump wants to build a wall with Mexico. He wants to have a trade war with China. He doesn't want there to be any refugees coming into America because he thinks that every refugee is a potential Boston bomber, so the presumption of innocence is gone. He's used every Hitlerian trick in the book to get himself into power, and everybody said, I was a wicked, nasty, evil person for pointing out his Hitlerian tendencies. But, there he is. He's trumping along. And I've come up with a new word, people. I think it should be the word of 2017. The Trumpleton. A Trumpleton, it's a bit like a simpleton. A Trumpleton is somebody who has put their faith in Donald Trump's Führerprinzip. The fact that an outsider who's run several businesses into the ground and lost billions of dollars over the years is the obvious person to lead us into broad sunlit uplands of endless prosperity and endless growth and jobs for the American Rust Belt. The Trumpletons, the true believers in Trump. And they are on the rise. They're on the rise in Queensland, only up there they're Hansonites. I don't know whether the extreme Fruit Loopy religious right's going to get much of a go in Australia, but they certainly are being given free access, full throttle to change things in the excited states of Fumbduckistan. That's another invention. People said that America had voted to go from armed Americano to dumb fuckistan when they elected Trump. Well, no, when the Trumpletons elected Tronald Dump, they became Fumbduckistan because it's much more polite when you write it spoonerised. The Trumpletons of Fumbduckistan, they're leading the world towards chaos. They're going to crash the global village's global trade system. They're going to unplug the oil pipeline. They're going to precipitate the implosion of every industrial economy on the planet. And it'll all be done for freedom and patriotism and jingoism and not backing down in the face of provocations. A glorious spectacle to behold, as long as you sit far enough back. And this is the juncture in time at which I would have preferred to be sitting in a colony on the moon, a self-sustaining colony on the moon. But, the days when I dreamed such daydreams are long ago. I understand now that planet Earth is possibly the smallest functional biosphere that is capable of sustaining human life. And we're fucking planet Earth as fast as we can for a profit, for hire and reward, and because it's so fucking shiny. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Upload limit. Ciao.